This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Welcome to this video, important presentation from my bedroom. Just wanted to say thanks to everyone who entered that baritone guitar giveaway thing. I didn't choose, but I used a random integer generator to choose one person from the top, or 117 from the top, and one person 117 from the bottom. So Christopher and a guy whose email is like Derducci. Christopher is based in the UK, and then the other chap's in Greece, so that's kind of cool. I don't know, leave in the comments if you think it's a good idea to make that sort of a more regular thing. Some of this demo stuff that I take on as work is, gear that I don't necessarily need per se. I've got the things that I really like to use, and it's cool to try gear, but in some cases I think in some ways it might be more cool to kind of give some of that stuff away sometimes so that you guys viewing this get something out of it. Anyway, so I finally got a chance to gig the Deluxe Reverb. I say gig, it was a christening. Jimmy and Sarah, if you're watching, christened their kid Lily, and they asked me and Jake to do some playing, and so took along the Deluxe Reverb reissue and kind of wanted to report back on that. The cool thing about the Deluxe Reverb to me is that it seems like for a time this was like a perfect amp, right, for certain things. You want a certain amount of clean headroom. Back in the 60s these amp things were mostly about clean headroom, right, and getting things louder. And then there was like an explosion in terms of amps that did far more volume, and we went through that period. I say I wasn't there, of using like 100-watt stacks and all that sort of stuff. And then we're kind of very much now on the very kind of end of the downslide on that, where people, for myself particularly, and in the UK, session players and all that sort of stuff, function players, are getting asked sort of to make less and less stage volume. And it's again coming to that stage where, like a Deluxe Reverb reissue, because stage volumes don't need to be super crazy loud, is kind of possibly even too loud for some stuff, but like sort of that sweet spot again where the Deluxe Reverb I think is going to be plenty loud enough for almost any gigging musician, unless you're doing like super heavy gigs, or you're doing like a hair metal band or that sort of stuff. But for like the average guy needing a pedal platform, I think that the Deluxe Reverb might be the thing. I've got to thank the boys at that pedal show for this, because Jake was working there at the time, and he kind of kept saying, I'm loving this Deluxe Reverb reissue. And when one came up nearby in Weymouth, decided to jump on it. Got it for £850, which is pretty reasonable, I think, for the kind of clean tones it does. Now, if there's one thing that is not super great about this amp, I think the reverb is a bit ridiculous. It's kind of got this over the top splashiness to it. Now I'm used to the other side of the coin, which is that, you know, sometimes like Mesa Boogie amps, for instance, used to have these reverbs on them that are like it wasn't clear that they were on at all, whereas this, I don't know to what extent that's going to pick up super well on the microphone, but it kind of sounds like you're in a cathedral that is within a cathedral. Like, it's bonkers, and that's just with the reverb on 4. So just a very full-on reverb. Also, this vibrato channel to me is quite sort of scoopy, quite bright for my tastes. My buddy John March did point out that if you go into this second, I think it's like a -6 dB, something like that, input, that you can actually start to push the amp a little bit more, and then that's a little bit higher headroom again. So that's a neat trick if you're kind of wanting, I want some of that vibrato, or I want, it's not vibrato, it's trem, and that reverb. Try plugging into the second input in the vibrato channel, and that's possibly going to get you a little bit more of that high headroom, big Fender sound. The normal channel is pretty much perfect and an amazing pedal platform. I have said before, what was that? If I could find an amp that would be just, you know, like these 3 controls and whatever's in a Deluxe Reverb without this gubbins, then that to me would be pretty much the perfect sort of clean amp. 22 watts is really plenty. I've also been on stage with this whilst Jake was gigging it, and it's really, really, really loud if you need it to be. Sort of between 2 and just over 2, it starts to get very loud. At 3, you're kind of beyond most gig volumes. 4 and 5, and beyond that, it starts to kind of drive and stuff, but I don't think most function gigging professional musicians are going to be able to get it beyond sort of 2 or 3, unless you're playing in like a really loud sort of blues club that are happy with stage volumes. Yeah, just reality of gigging these days. It's not as lightweight as it looks. It's quite a small format, but it is a fairly densely built piece of kit. Yeah, the only negatives for me is that vibrato channel can be a bit on the spiky side when you put pedals in front of it as well. The reverb is just crazy, and it's like either off or you suddenly jumped into a pool of John Cordy's mixes, basically. So yeah, great amp. If there's one amp that has impressed me above all else this year, it would be the Deluxe Reverb. And I think it's quite a respectable price that you can find these for used, sort of like £800, £1,000. To me, it's quite a cool sounding amp as well. For the intro, I was using a Boss SD1, which sort of Tube Screamer-esque, sounds great in front of this. And then on the actual gig itself with Jake, sort of just a duo setting, which is amazing for as well, actually. Just, you know, this is the perfect amp, basically. You do jazz, you do bluesy stuff, you do function stuff, you know, you could do some heavier stuff if you're putting the right pedals in front of it. It's just a really great all-rounder. But I was using the Browne Amplification Carbon X, which is like a Bluesbreaker-ish pedal. But yeah, as I say, this vibrato channel a little bit more scoop, so that's for me why I have the treble turned down a bit and the bass turned up, so that can bring the mids out a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of my experience with the amp. So I just wanted to share that, as I really did want to try and get, before the end of the year, the Deluxe Reverb onto a stage. I've got a couple of gigs with my function band coming up, so I'm going to take it out for that as well, I think, and maybe try and get some more footage, if that's of any interest to anyone. I guess you wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And then I think I've got a couple of gigs before the end of the year, so I want to try and take out the Bad Cat, which is on my mind right now because I just opened it out of the box today. But of all the amps that have impressed me this year, single pedal platform, vibes, Deluxe Reverb, cracking amp. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you got any amps that you prefer for this kind of job? Please let other folks know those in the comments, or boutique builders from wherever you're from that are building this kind of amp well. I'd love to, you know, have the comments filled with sort of people that are doing a good job of like the Deluxe Reverb type circuit. Cheers for stopping by. I guess even if you're using a Tone Master, let other folks know that it's doing the job for you.